Welcome to Between Two Pastries, a not-so-typical nutrition podcast. Nicole and Annie are licensed and registered dietitians. Join them as they discuss hot nutrition topics, challenge popular beliefs, and have a blast doing it. Here are your hosts, Nicole and Annie.
Welcome to Between Two Pastries, everybody. This is Nicole.
Hey everyone, it's Annie.
Today we have our second oncology dietitian joining us today. We had an amazing interview with our previous one. Welcome, Mandy. We so appreciate you being here, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
All right, thanks so much. I greatly appreciate the invite, and I'm super excited to be here sharing some knowledge bombs in the oncology field, as I call it. So,
what? Absolutely.
Right. So, as mentioned, my name is Mandy. I am a registered dietitian. I've been one for a little bit over 5 years. Actually, been with Ascension for 5 years.
Wow.
Going strong.
Good.
Didn't start in oncology though. I was inpatient and then I transitioned to outpatient. Oncology, the opportunity knocked and I just grabbed onto it. So I've been working in the oncology field. I'm full-time outpatient, as I said. When I'm not in clinic, I absolutely love getting outside, kind of practicing what I preach. So I am constantly outdoors. I love climbing mountains, so I guess kind of
cool.
behind me.
I love that though. Those are really cool.
Did you make those?
I did not. I wish I did.
Yeah.
No.
It looks like, you could like play it up like, oh yeah, those are
right. Like, that's another talent.
Those are original.
Yeah, I wish. No, definitely always over on the Pacific Northwest a lot of time, and then Colorado. So doing a lot of 14ers. Yeah, big volleyball player and a kickboxer. So that's kind of my little sports stuff on the side.
Nice.
But oncology definitely captured my heart. So here to share all. So I think I'll kind of dive in with the fact that I actually work at 2 different oncology clinics. So they split my time between 2. I have 2 very different patient populations because of that. So one of mine is up in Brookfield, and then the other one is in Wauwatosa / border of Milwaukee.
Sure.
So it's been nice to have a variety of people. I'll kind of give a little bit of rundown on, I suppose, what my like day-to-day sort of is in clinic. I meet with every single new patient in-house, and I check in with patients who are currently on treatment. That just actually depends on side effects, type of cancer. And then, sometimes I'm meeting with people, I can push them out a couple weeks. And sometimes I'm meeting with them like at least once a week. It just depends on how their body reacts. That's the kind of thing with, I guess that's the unique part about oncology, I'll say, is that can't be a cookie cutter in this field. You got to kind of ebb and flow with what's going on. And that's one of the, I think, the fun things for me, as well as one of the tougher things, because you can't really follow there's no like script here. You just kind of got to tackle a pretty serious thing head on and make it the best for people as much as possible. I also do see any patients that come in to see the oncologist as well as the radiologist. So both of those treatments are in my clinic. So it gets kind of busy because they're on different levels, but work it as best as I can. I think, just in general, I discuss the nutritional material at face value, starting with what patients can maybe see once they begin treatment in terms of nutrition, how the best way is to start them off on the right foot at the beginning. And then I get the necessary information, kind of similar to an inpatient dietitian, where I need those, what's your regular eating pattern? In this field, I actually am really careful. I do not use the word diet.
Good for you.
I just think there's a lot of things that come with that word. So I actually always call it eating pattern.
We know it, sister.
Yes,
an eating pattern. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's an eating pattern.
Not a big fan of that word. So I'm always really referring to it as eating pattern in this arena, because you never know. I mean, someone could come in and they want to be eating, but maybe they have had prior experiences with other, XYZs with diet. So I just try to keep it out the doors in my clinics.
Perfect.
So get the information I need right away out of the gate. And then most importantly, I tell my patients that I try to keep things simple. Everything in oncology can get pretty messy and pretty complex. So, in my opinion, I'm biased, but I think that keeping nutrition simple makes it just easier, and and even outside of the nutrition field too. It just keep it simple. Just follow simple guidelines. No one ever wants to believe that, but I wish more people would understand that. So
people make it so hard on themselves. Yeah,
they do 100% everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Agreed.
so I remind them I'll keep it simple, and they do actually, breath. Okay, sounds great, because everyone's all worked up initially at everything, of course, understandably so. And I think, like, if I were to describe myself in my clinics, I like to call myself the ray of sunshine for each patient on like their darkest days. They get this terrible diagnosis. They're trying to process everything, and they're trying to do everything by the book. But at the end of the day, they're really missing something. So I try to get them to smile at least once every single interaction I can. And I consider that a win for me in this arena for sure. But I just remind them, nobody walks alone with this fight. So no one even is going to walk in complete darkness either. So ray of sunshine, trying to come through when I can with the nutrition piece.
That's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, that truly
adults and kids, or just
just adults.
Okay.
Yep.
Is there a kids, or would that just all go to children's?
That my best guess on that would go to children's.
That all okay. Yeah. So Ascension in general, blanket statement, just does adults with oncology. Okay. Yeah. Just curious on that one.
Yep.
So one of the first things that we're just going to kick it right out, and we did with the other dietitian as well, is this whole myth around sugar feeding cancer, even causing cancer, and how everybody's just so like, oh, we have to eliminate it. What is your approach on that as well? And how do you, because I know you hear it, of course you will, because it's everywhere. So how do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually do hear that probably, I don't know, maybe not necessarily on the daily, but anyone starting new, especially with breast cancer, kind of like to tag the, I know I shouldn't eat sugar, Mandy. And so then I actually like stop it like right away, because I'll let them, say their comment, and then I'll just interject instantly, because I don't want that to run any choices in the kitchen, anywhere they're eating something. So it's definitely a hot topic in the cancer field. I think it will forever be, just due to the misinformation out there on social media. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bloggers out there. There's a lot of people who have gone through cancer treatment themselves and eliminated all sugars. I often question that also, because sugar is in naturally a lot of foods.
Because it should be, because if
they drink the wine.
Yeah. I mean,
so I just remind people, when you're looking for especially nutrition information out there, please go to reputable sources. So, American Cancer Society, fantastic. Always pushing my patients there. Otherwise, if they're looking for that nutrition piece, I do say, please look for someone with the letters RD behind their name.
Wonderful.
And I explain what that means. And I also allude to a nutritionist really necessarily does not have to have any education to get that title. So trying to clear that gray area for the misleading stuff.
Fantastic. And so, sorry, go ahead, Annie.
Yeah.
Just on that, do you feel, as you're stopping patients from, diving into how they're not going to eat sugar, do you feel like there's a battle with medical doctors, providers and stuff, that they, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, well, we could eliminate sugar and do this, like they kind of give a blanket statement dietary line, and really now it's combating with what you're saying ultimately?
Yeah. So I think it depends on the physician for sure. I do see a lot of that in-house, inpatient. I am forever grateful that my oncologists pretty much stay in their lanes and they refer to me. Amazing. So yes, I think too, it's unfortunate because I agree with the statement to an extent. So I'll digress into this a little bit. So sugar being found in many foods, and I don't stop my patients. I definitely talk through this with them too. And I give them a handout that I have prepared. But I remind them sugar, added sugar is actually what we want to be aware of. So not just sugar, it's the added sugar. And so I allude to research actually has not supported that eating just sugar will cause cancer or make it worse. And it actually hasn't supported that it will stop or make cancer shrink.
Precisely.
Well, but here's the problem: is adding an apple added sugar. But see, this is the thing, Nicole, is
Right.
everyone thinks
The
that
mentality.
if there's sugar, then I'm adding that in. And this is where, we kind of overlap with that disordered eating piece.
Yeah.
Everyone interprets, they don't exactly understand how to read a label. And if they do, added sugar, we're avoiding. And well, I'm going to do one better. I'll just not eat sugar.
Right.
See what I mean? This is the tumble that people
right get. Well, and people don't, they don't have access to someone who can explain that, right? And so I kind of go even further, right? Like the internet is terrible. I hate it.
Yeah. We do too.
No, I definitely, I kind of explain like the whole concept of like the added sugar is more so because sugar increases empty calorie intake, right? So then we're providing our body with like excessive calories, potentially
less
reducing nutrients. Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's, and I think too, like people need to understand that there's no difference between white refined sugar or like brown unrefined sugars.
Yep.
So, sugar, right? So the effects on the body, the same. You're going to have possibly an increase in body weight if you continue to overindulge, or insulin levels go out of whack. So, I explain to people, going back to the apple comment. Yes. So I explain the difference where there's natural sugars with an apple, but then we're looking to eliminate foods like cakes, candy, cookies, sweetened cereals, sodas. So those are like the added sugars that I'm warning people about over consuming, not having to like completely eliminate. Nothing's ever black and white, even in oncology, but higher sugar intake can lead to overweight, obesity. And then the concern that I wish physicians would go further into isn't causing cancer. The concern is the obesity is tied to so many other diseases, heart disease, diabetes. And so we start going into a trifecta. That's the main concern there. And I just, I think people too need to remember that all cells in our body, cancer cells or not, they need glucose being sugar, being carbohydrates, another thing that gets deemed as a bad guy.
Yeah,
they use it. I mean, our bodies use it as fuel, as that energy source.
Yeah.
So we're not feeding it. We're not feeding it. Functioning.
I think what's really important, though, for people just to hear again is the whole concept, because this is what we've gotten away from is, people are so obsessed with, this is a slight digression, but yet these people are coming in with this mentality, right? Where it's all about either a reduction in size or eating less, when we forget that we still have nutrient requirements. So, in regards to the added sugar piece, it's just constantly reminding people that it's like, okay, if we're doing all of these things over here, we now have taken away from our body actually receiving the things that we need to feel better or to tolerate treatment. And again, it's not saying let's not do these things. It's let's make sure though that we have like all of this other stuff here too. It's that whole nutrient connection that is just so important. That's the important thing. It's not like, it's like, we don't care if you want a piece of cake, and where are some of these other nutrients? So yeah.
And I do tell my patients too, I'm like, please eat. I mean, especially when someone is having a poor appetite from treatment, I'm like, okay,
oh my gosh,
please go eat high calorie foods.
Whatever you can tolerate.
Ice cream, please. Yes. So there you go, like sugar, but you just nailed it. It's about the whole eating pattern, and that whole eating pattern needs to be rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, all have sugar, some form of sugar in it. Yeah. And that's a prevention that's been supported by American Cancer Society to include all those. So
forever. Yeah.
Stop me if you feel like I'm wrong or you disagree. I think we have to remember too, that case by case, if someone is overweight or obese, their health, they might be in perfect health outside of having cancer. Correct. They might, not having, their weight might not be an indicator for health in that way. You might have someone who is super thin, and you know what I mean? Like sometimes our size doesn't necessarily determine what's going to happen. So like, and sometimes depending on our situation, we may or may not have to add in more or less, like you were saying, high calorie things. It's just, it's kind of like this case by case. So to have, and this probably gets old for you, similar to, diabetes educators and cardiac dietitians, where it's just everyone comes in and says, well, I can't eat carbs anymore because I have
right.
right, or I can't eat fat anymore. And it's like, let's take a step back.
These extremes.
Who are
Yeah.
you? And let's look at your situation case by case and not worry about the fact that you're over or overweight. I feel like underweight is more critical.
Yeah, for sure.
9 times out of 10. But, let's look at the whole picture. And that's what I think people forget about more often than not.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Yeah. And I always do turn it toward, like you just said, it's not about eliminating things from your diet. It's about adding things to make it more nutritious. So
Yeah,
that's usually the
absolutely.
turn I take with people.
So one of the things that we didn't get to with the previous guest that we really wanted to tackle, because this is another really big, hot thing, is in regards to breast cancer and the consumption of soy. And again, there's so much confusion for the consumer, not for us, but for the consumer around the use of soy in general. So just kind of wanting to see where you stand on that and how you help people navigate that.
Yeah, so that's another one that, I'll let my patients have their opportunity to have this discussion with me and voice their concerns. But ultimately, American Cancer Society has some really great information debunking, I'll say that as well. Mainly because, when risk comes into play of increased breast cancer with soy, it actually has been supported that soy foods, so the food sources, I'm not talking about supplements, but the food sources, they reduce the risk of breast cancer in women.
100%. And we know that.
Right. So it's the other side to it. But I do remind my patients that those soy supplements, on the other hand, they generally tend to get real gray area just due to higher levels of isoflavones. So, that comes into play, which are found in soy.
Yeah,
Like,
when you're talking about supplements.
What I would say, like a supplement would be like a protein, a soy protein powder, for instance. So whatever is processed, not in its original form, like not a food form, right? So I'm, in terms of like one of my favorite snacks, actually, full disclosure, I love edamame.
Hello.
So
me too.
Great source of protein. That's another thing, and fiber. So the soy products can have some really good nutrients, kind of bringing that back into play.
Yeah.
That, fear kind of creeps in and could stop people from getting those from, soy milk is another good one, actually has a really good amount of protein to it.
Yes.
I push my patients more toward that when they tell me they're wanting to do almond milk for protein. I kind of have to educate again on that.
Yeah.
But, and tofu and tempeh. So, there's a lot of very good soy products. So we kind of talk through the fact versus fiction, I'll say, and try and minimize that fear. And then, of course, kind of actually give them a little pat on the back, though, too, at the same time, because they're being precautious. But it is, again, that supplement, protein powders, pills, whatever form is not the original food form, anything that has been manipulated.
Right.
Is something to be concerned about.
Yeah. And I really hope people hear that, because again, soy is truly a great thing. And it's hard to watch people just stand around fear with food, or fear with foods that they ate, especially they're like vegetarian or something, So, and then I guess moving kind of with that too, do you have different protocols that you do with different forms of cancer? Would there be a different protocol for lung cancer versus, something with like the gut? Yeah, exactly. Colon cancer.
Yeah. So, I think when it comes to the types of nutritional interventions that I do for, I'll take it at a broad spectrum first. There's a lot of different ones according to side effects from treatment, but I'll go into that second. In terms of different nutrition for different cancers, 2 of them actually stand out big time to me. One would be colorectal, colon cancer, rectal cancer, and then pancreatic, actually. So
big.
Those 2, colorectal, usually I am just reminding patients to reduce intake of the red or processed meats. Now, I say reduce because, again, I'm not a black and white person. I'm never telling anyone to take 100% of anything out of their eating pattern. I don't support that. But those 2, red and processed meats, have been proven to be risk factors for those specific cancers. So keeping intake down, since we already would have a diagnosis at this point of seeing me, would be just really important for that. And processed meats being like your sausage or your bacon or your deli meats.
Yeah. And when again, I only bring this up because I know how where the listeners are going, right?
I got to
So it's
stop
like,
eating those things.
That's correct. So it's kind of like, let's talk about what that really means.
What does a risk factor mean?
Right. Because when I know when I'm working with someone, I specifically talk about the amount of exposure, and things like this. So when you're maybe giving recommendations or trying to educate someone around that, how, again, what do you say?
Yeah, so I go with the recommended amount per week, and that is 18 ounces. Real life examples,
Which
I
is
love
like
it.
Huge.
Yeah, it's a lot. So that's why I'm like, don't eliminate, right?
Right.
So size of palm, it's roughly like 3 ounces, right?
Yeah, 3 to 4, depending. Yeah.
Yep. So I would just say ballpark it, and I tell people that gives you at least a good, like, if you want to split it with 3, that's a good 6 ounces. 3
That's
times
like
a week.
massive, though.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So it's not about completely. Now that is for, I will say though, I'll pause myself here. That is for the red meat.
Sure.
Now the processed meats, I do say keep it as, there's no recommendation because that one is a little bit higher for risk.
Yeah.
So I just say keep it at a minimum. That's at your discretion. Now to pause, because I'm definitely not saying no red meat. And I actually tell my patients, please include lean red meat. And that's anything with like a loin, great, sirloin, tenderloin, steaks, fantastic. That vitamin B12, so important. Please make sure that red meat comes into play. Absolutely. Yeah. So yes, it's no eliminating anything.
Yeah. No, and I love it. So I hope people really heard that.
Yes. I mean, I'll keep saying it. Yes. So that's for those two. But then for pancreatic, it's a little tricky. It depends on stage of what the person comes in at. But often the nutritional interventions are very different for them just because of the whole breaking down the food is a little bit complicated because of their cancer. So I usually am telling them to eat 5 to 6 small meals or snacks a day. It just depends on where they're at. Include protein with each meal because, again, trying to maintain that muscle mass if things aren't being broken down efficiently or absorbed as efficiently, unfortunately. Along with that, I do tell them to eat slower, trying to help that whole process of breaking down the food in the mouth and chew slower too. So again, just trying to help aid that whole process because something isn't working right. And we don't know, some of my patients do get put on pancreatic enzymes as well, just depending upon myself and the oncologist, if we think that's a good idea or not. So that, I would say that one is probably one of the trickier ones. Just had a new one start who is actually on pancreatic enzymes, who actually, she said, is working very well. So fingers crossed that continues. So the good news is there are always options too, with just depending upon. Otherwise, honestly, recommendations for just, I'll say general nutrition when it comes to cancer, mostly plant-based eating. So I say mostly because, again, I'm a huge protein person. So please include proteins while you're going toward a mostly plant-based eating pattern. And that doesn't mean, I'm going to pause because it doesn't mean I want you to all become like a vegetarian or vegan. Like, no, please, just overall picture is include some of those really great nutritious plants. All those things that people seek in supplements, vitamins and minerals, fruits and vegetables. Save your money.
Yeah, no joke. No joke. Well, the excuse is I don't like those things, so I would rather eat a pill,
which, and
you're not getting the benefit. Yeah.
You're not. And it's not as easily absorbed as the food source. Your body doesn't know how to absorb pills and powders and detox teas, etc. So
correct. Yeah.
Can we argue that a lot of people hear plant-based, and because the word plant is in it, they just assume, you know what
vegan,
I mean? Like,
that they need to be vegan.
That's all you
eat.
That's extreme thinking behaviors that are occurring. And that again is the problem, because plant-based doesn't mean vegetarian or vegan. It just you're eating plants regular.
Right. It's like, okay, if we look at your plate, how many of those are plants? What percentage is it? Like, and then that's your base.
But it's also okay if that's not every single day. Like, you have to remember
that's correct.
Not because the amount of guilt that some people feel because they did. Oh, I didn't have a salad with lunch. It's like, dude, neither did I. It's
like,
okay.
Chill out. Yeah,
I know,
right?
Like, totally.
I know. And I think too, people don't
yeah, go
realize
ahead.
how easy it is to add fruits and vegetables
Oh,
too.
yeah.
I mean, I'm like, hey, I just talked to a patient. I'm like, you like eating pizza? So how about you toss on some bell peppers on that next time you get your pizza and maybe
Yeah.
some mushrooms? Boom. So you just increased it. And it was so simple because you're eating something you enjoy.
Right.
And then you can add some more plants on there.
Yeah.
Right.
I think people get a little hung up with like they don't get how small the serving size is and how impactful. Like if we're going to talk about a serving, they don't realize that it doesn't actually take a lot to be impactful,
Right. Yep.
So yeah.
And I think too, it plays on the whole like small steps make big impacts. And
Oh,
people just
yeah.
don't want to believe that. But it's
Yeah.
just, it can be such a game changer.
That's right. Absolutely.
And manageable to actually
Yes.
make change. That's,
Yeah.
Can we really quick, because I've worked with clients before with cancer in short periods of time where they go for the collagen and kind of the, feeling like that's going to be a cure-all for their cancer. Not a cure-all, not cure their cancer, but they need to make these changes. What are your thoughts on collagen, maybe in general, or as it relates to cancer? Are there any links between the two?
No, collagen, I will say it links to cancer, not that I've seen evidence-based research. However, collagen in its time and place, okay, a natural protein found in foods. So I actually tell my patients, please, before going and getting that collagen powder and dropping close to probably $50 for a container.
Right. Yeah.
The reminder is it's naturally an amino acid, which is in chicken, fish, and sure, bone broth, of course, can come because I know that's a big one too, but eggs, legumes, and you know what? Even our bad guy of soy has it too. So there's a lot of protein foods that can give collagen as well. And in my opinion, more efficiently. And, whenever anyone is interested in that, because some of my cancer patients bring up wanting it for, their hair and skin and nails, because
yeah, of course.
some of the side effects do impact that. So I would never, tell someone not to include the nutrient, but always food first is my staple on that.
Well, again, and it's explaining again, these collagen supplements are simply supplements if we can't get in these certain sources. And the other piece too is that collagen isn't a complete amino acid either. So we're kind of missing out on some of those things too. And again, people just have this expectation of like that it will just make everything so much better, but
it will fix it. But I should say a PSA here, because I don't want anyone to hear this wrong either. If your physician or a healthcare professional has told you based on your laboratory values that you have a deficiency in something and they have prescribed you a supplement,
there you go.
Please listen to that.
That's a completely different story.
Yes.
Totally.
I don't want that to hear, I don't want anyone to stop any kind of supplements that you've actually been prescribed. So that's my little PSA on that.
That's absolutely perfect. So as we're kind of drawing to a close here, do you have any kind of like final words, or, if you wanted people to remember one or two things, what would that be for you?
Yeah. So I think I'll put it in two different topics here, titles. I'll do one on like cancer prevention, and then I'll do one in case anyone's on cancer treatment. Prevention, I'm biased, of course, being an oncology dietitian who works actually with our prevention and high risk program too. But my advice is pretty simple. Start sooner than later with your preventative measures. I can't emphasize this enough. We're a curative society. Red flag sirens don't tend to go off until something is actually really wrong. And then we're trying to fix it and backtrack. And unfortunately, I see that. So sometimes it's pretty difficult to fix things once a cancer diagnosis is actually delivered.
Yeah.
In terms of treatment, always advocate for yourself. Something I've noticed from attending webinars is that not all cancer clinics across the United States, they don't all practice the same way, don't have the same interdisciplinary team members, and some sites don't even have a registered dietitian present. Best practice definitely varies, but remember, you are the expert of your bodies, and when something feels off, listen to those cues. If you are having nutrition specific side effects and you have not been seen by a registered dietitian, ask to speak to one at your clinic. Or if you simply want nutrition information, or you just request to speak to one. It doesn't even have to be, side effect driven during treatment. Always use your voice, because health is wealth and you're worth it.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. And then we usually ask everybody that we have on what their favorite food is.
I love it. Simple. I'm a big culture of food fan, so pad thai all the way.
Oh, sweet. Yes, that's really good.
So good.
Yeah. But the minute you say it, I can taste it. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm
So
like
good.
salivating, like, and
I
dinner.
Yeah, completely. Oh, that's so great. Mandy, thanks so much for being here. Annie, do you have any last words or questions, comments?
I don't have any last questions, but Mandy, well, I guess this is kind of a question. Besides working with Ascension, do you have an outpatient or anything on the side or anything like that? If people wanted to reach out, or certainly we can throw people your way.
Yeah, I do actually.
Send that to me, and then I'll make sure that that's all in the show notes for everybody. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here, Mandy. We so appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I had a blast.
Thank you.
Have questions you want to hear discussed on the show? Find us on Facebook or visit between2pastries.com and drop us a line. Want to support the show? Find us on Patreon for exclusive content. If you love the show, find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review.